Hello, welcome and welcome back to all my butterflies and emerging butterflies. You know what today is? It is Thursday, and that means it is time for uncomfortable conversations where? Right here on Vegas Hype Media with me, Emerging Z. So, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. As always, I'm going to say hello and thank you to my new subscribers and encourage all of you new listeners to go ahead and subscribe so you can always know when a new episode has been dropped. Okay. I want to thank last week's guest, Miss Brittany Soul, one of my favorite people here. We just had the best time. So that was awesome. I want to inform you guys that next month is going to be National Poetry Month. So look out for that. We will certainly have maybe one or two poets on. Going to be a great time. Make sure you're checking out Uncomfortable Conversations every Thursday at 5 p.m. Where? Vegas Hype Media Live. Okay. As always, as I introduce today's guest, I want to ask you to come with an open heart and mind to receive full transparency from our guests and allow them the grace that they need or you would want when you are sharing your uncomfortable conversation. Remember, an uncomfortable conversation relinquishes shame and guilt in a tranquil space, right? So today I have with me, of course, a woman. This is our last day of Women's History Month, but we will continue to always celebrate and lift up all of the amazing women, especially in our community. At least I will anyway. I want to point out that today's guest is a community health worker. She is an author, radio host, and an advocacy award winner. Let's get into it. It is my pleasure to introduce, my words are getting stuck today, introduce Miss Alyssa Howard. Welcome to Uncomfortable
Thank you.
Conversations. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have you here. So you guys, we kind of chatted a little bit behind the scenes and I told her I was so excited to have her on here because I wanted to do a real interview with just her, some personal questions. She's used to giving her political health answers and I wanted her to have some fun and enjoy this conversation. So that's what we're going to do. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get into it. Like I said, this is Women's History Month. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to check out any of the shows before coming on. If you haven't, my first two questions. Oh, good. So you know what the questions are already?
No,
Oh, okay. Good.
I just listened.
I just listened. I didn't really pay attention to what you said, but okay, that works too. No, it's cool. So, in honor of Women's History, I have been asking each woman to give me their perspective or their definition of what a woman is. So, I'd love to hear your side of that.
That's actually a really good question. To me, a woman is someone that embodies um, compassion and patience and grace. I get my definition from the Proverbs 31 woman. I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual, and I do believe that a lot of things that we know and we live by come from um, books like the Bible, books similar to Buddhism and everything else that describes, how we should be as a woman, that we should be graceful and with all things that we do, that we have the ability to birth the world, and that we are the world, and everything that comes from us. And so that should, as a woman, that should embody so many things. If we have put everybody here on this earth, then we need to be Mother Earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Living in nurturing and living in patience, living in guidance and mercy and grace for others. But also, the world knows that Mother Earth also has its vengeance. And so knowing when to use that and when to use
Mm.
when to use patience and when to use grace in certain circumstances. So to me, that is my definition of a woman.
Okay, I love that definition. I love that you brought up the word vengeance when it
Mm,
comes to women. So I'm gonna circle back on that, but I do have a
okay.
follow up question to the original question. you spoke to birthing and nurturing and women putting everything here, or people here on earth,
Right.
right? We produce.
Yes.
How do you feel in respects to women that don't give birth or don't identify in a capacity where they can actually give birth?
And I look at giving birth as something that is not a physical thing sometimes, right? It's not a physical labor. It's not, that's why I did say exactly that in the way that I did, because some women are transgender women, right? And they see themselves as women. And who am I to take that away from them? They may have birth who they are. They may have birth a book. They may have birth something that they put out, right? So when I say birth, I mean the fact that you're bringing something to this earth and adding to it. And I don't want to use the word female because I want to be gender neutral and respectful to those that consider themselves women but may not have been born a physical woman with the actual body parts, but they see themselves as a woman.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. So now we're going to go back to, I said we were going to bring up vengeance again, right? So,
Yes.
with that being said, how have you weaponized your vagina?
That's
Ah.
funny.
Because we all have.
We all have, and we do it all the
Absolutely.
time. I think about this kind of stuff all the time, especially like when it's that going up to somebody and being nice, and going up to a man in particular, right? A heterosexual man. We know how to weaponize what we have as women. I've done that by getting drinks. I've done that by being wanting to be first in a place that I want to go to, and using my vagina as that prop
Right.
as far as just using my femininity. I see it as that way. I haven't physically used my vagina to do anything to anyone to manipulate, but I do use it in a non-physical way often. And I think we all do as women, like you said. I think it's a natural thing. We know when to be cute. We
Right.
know when to rub or just stroke that little hand and say, I would really like to stand here, or I would really like you to buy me a drink, or whatever it is, right?
We don't
And
even
we
have to
usually get
use
our
those
way.
words. I would really like you to buy me a drink. Just sit there with an empty glass. It's, oh, can I buy?
Yes,
Absolutely. Sure. I would love that. I was actually having
absolutely.
X, Y, and Z, right? And then they'll just get it. It's great.
Absolutely,
Like, it's great.
absolutely. Or you can just sit there looking cute, right? And just have your
That
legs
works
crossed and looking
too.
like,
That
yeah, and that
absolutely
works too without
works.
any words being said.
Never have to say anything. That's one uncomfortable conversation you don't actually have to have with words, right?
Very true.
I love that. I love that. So I'm glad you understand and know that the vagina, or our power, we definitely can weaponize it, right? But
Yeah,
I think it goes both ways. It can be
absolutely.
a good power, or it can be a negative power, right? It just depends
Absolutely.
on what the intent is behind it. So,
Absolutely. And I was going to say, are you going to ask the other question? Have you been weaponized? Have someone weaponized their body parts on you?
oh,
Because it
well,
does
go ahead and
happen
go
on the
into it
gym.
because I'd love to hear about it since you brought it up.
Since I brought it up, I
Yeah,
mean,
since you
I'm
brought
just
it up, let's
saying that
talk
it
about
does
it.
happen the other way as well. That men may hear this and say, "I knew it. I knew that women do that to us or whatever," but they do it to us as well.
Absolutely.
It's human nature. We want, the other gender. They want us, but also gender neutral people. It's just a craving of humanness, right? And
Right.
so we use what we have, all of us,
To
in
get
some
what
type of
we
way.
want. And it
Yes,
works. It
yes,
definitely works. They
it
say
does.
use what you have to get what you want. Um,
Exactly.
so you are a health worker, right? And you speak to, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. I wasn't sure if you could hear me. I thought it went out. Um, what are some specific health disparities that African American women experience compared to other groups? And how do these disparities contribute to the lack of health equity?
So let's do one question at a time because I'm
Right. We
gonna
can do the
totally
first one.
forget it.
Okay.
I just finished teaching a 3.5 hour class and my brain is fried right now.
Sorry.
So I'm a public health professional. I teach community health work. So I'm an instructor for community health workers. So I teach them how to do what I do, which is help with health disparities. The way that community health workers help with health disparities is by bridging that gap, stepping in between that gap between the healthcare system, the medical system, the social services system, and the public health system. And the reason why that gap needs to be bridged is because we see where people fall through that gap often, right? We
Mm,
see where you leave the doctor's office, but the doctor didn't know that you lived in a certain zip code in a certain neighborhood, and didn't know that you lived in a food desert, which means that you don't have a,
proper
a
nutrition.
grocery store or proper nutrition around you. So they told you, we need you to change your diet, but yet they didn't realize that because they just simply didn't look at your zip code, that you may not have
Have the
something that can help you
resources.
change your diet. So
Right.
now you go back out into the world, you're still eating what you want to eat because you're like, this is not convenient for me to go to Sprouts. It's not convenient financially or transportation wise to go to Sprouts or go to Trader Joe's where they have better nutritional foods, right? So
Right.
now that community health worker can step in into neighborhoods, into health fair, go to health fairs and see you and meet you where you are and say, okay, what is the issue? What's your barrier? And then we can help find referrals and resources to help bridge that gap and that barrier that the medical system left you behind. And then when we talk about the social services system, we don't get everything that we need from them either. And then the public health system. So sometimes people like myself, public health educators and professionals, don't go to certain neighborhoods because they don't feel safe. They don't go into certain neighborhoods to teach diabetes and chronic disease classes, which they should be, but because of their unwillingness to go to those neighborhoods, those people are left behind. So community health workers kind of bridge that gap in between all of those systems to be able to help fill the gap of health disparities so we can eventually end health disparities.
Great. Thank you. So, in piggybacking off of that, the next part of the question was, how do these disparities contribute to the lack of health equity? And I think it would be great if you would just explain exactly what health equity is first, because I'm not sure everyone here listening even knows what health equity is.
So health equity is basically being equitable in our healthcare systems, and exactly what I just said, giving that example of those different models that are a part of our healthcare system. We don't think of social services as health. We don't think of we always obviously know that medical and healthcare is health, but we don't think of all the other little nuances in our lives, right? So health equity is bridging those gaps, making everything equitable and equal for everybody, right? So as we talk about equality, we also have to talk about equity. Is everybody getting the same boots, the same bootstraps, right? I
Right.
when one of our presidents said, "Well, everybody's giving pull yourself up by your bootstraps." Where there's some people who are saying, "But I didn't get any boots,"
Right.
so that's not equitable to say that. Because if you know that you live in a country where everybody's not given the same amount to start off with, then you're not practicing equity. And so when we talk about equity in healthcare, it's the same exact thing. Is everybody getting access to health? Is everybody getting a doctor? Is everybody getting PCA or a home care person to come out to them when they can't go to the doctor? No, they're not. So we are not practicing equity. Another great example is a visual example because I'm a visual creator person. I see equity as think of somebody, think of three kids, one tall kid, one short kid, and one middle-sized kid, and they're all trying to look over a wall at a game, right? A baseball game. And the tall kid, he doesn't need a brick or anything to stand on because he's tall, right? So he has the upper advantage over the short kid and the middle-sized kid. And then the middle-sized kid maybe has two bricks or three bricks that they get to stand on, but then you left the short kid with nothing to stand on. That's equity, and that's a visualization of what equity looks like. It's putting that fourth brick or that fifth brick, whatever that short person needs, to be able to see over the wall at the same level as those
As
other two
everybody
people.
else.
That's equity.
Okay. Thank you for breaking that down for those of us that did not understand or know exactly what that is. Also, I
Mhm.
would like to talk about the fact that you've been dubbed the accidental public health advocate. How do you
Mhm.
accidentally fall into being a public health advocate?
So I've been dubbed that by myself.
Okay.
Um, because I had to realize that I accidentally fell into this field, and I believe in God, I believe in spirituality, and I believe that everything happens for a reason, and that everything that you've been through in life will get used for the good of whatever it is that you're supposed to be doing, such as purpose, right? And so I say accidentally, but it really was never an accident. It's just really more so of a catchphrase. And the reason I say that is because I was supposed to be a lawyer. That's what I've been telling my family, my friends since I was 8 years old. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a lawyer.
Oh, okay.
and ended up going. I got pregnant at 15 years old due to health disparities, due to lack of health education being in my community, being due to religious unfreedoms of my parents who felt like they couldn't talk to me about sex and protecting myself because they didn't even talk to me about sex in general. So they didn't know that I was even interested. And so there's a lot of other things that go on with why people get pregnant, right? And
Right.
so that happens. And then it was, well, I'm still going to go to college because that's just who I am. No matter what happens, I'm still going to do what I feel I'm supposed to be doing. So I still kept pushing forward and I went to college and I stopped and got my paralegal degree. And I said, well, let me get a paralegal degree just to make sure that I really want to go full
All the way
fledged
through with
into
it.
law. Yeah, because law school is like very long. So I was like,
Yeah,
let me stop here.
it's
Let me
forever
stop here.
learning.
Exactly. Let me stop here and see if I like this paralegal stuff. Love law. I finished my 2 year degree. I love law. I worked in for 3 years. I worked in different law offices, learned different types of law. I did not like the people in law.
Mm.
So, and I was so grateful to have learned that. Most people would have been devastated. Most people would have been like, oh my gosh, I've been talking about this since I was 8 years old. But for me, I was just like, okay, what's
Yeah,
next?
I'm over
I
it.
learned, yeah, I was like, okay, I did it. I'm glad I stopped here. I don't have $100,000 worth of student loan debt trying to go to law school for something that
Right.
I wasn't going to come out and like anyways.
And it's
Like I
great that
said,
you brought that up. I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's
yeah,
great that you brought that up because oftentimes people don't feel like they can go into something and then not do that or redirect, pivot and go to something else. They end up getting these
absolutely.
degrees, right? That they are not
Absolutely.
interested in and they don't even work in their field. But like you said, they end up with
Yep.
hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt.
Yep. And it happens more often than we know, and it happens to every community,
Absolutely.
every color of person. It doesn't have a discrimination.
Not at
I know
all.
so many people that I worked in a law firm in Rochester, New York during that 3 years, 100-year law firm. Everybody was just like, how did you just come here and you started working at that prestigious law firm already? I'm like, I don't know. But while I was there were people there that literally hated their jobs. It was
Hmm.
a corporate law firm, and I saw how miserable they were. And
Right.
that was my it was several other experiences that I just saw with lawyers, with attorneys and their mindsets. And I was just like, I don't think this is how God would have me to help people in life.
Not at all. He does not want us to be miserable and upset and disappointed on a day to day basis. So, yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I'm also going to go back
Yeah.
to the fact that you said you got pregnant at 15. And
Yeah.
can I assume this is a child that you have current day?
Yes. Yes. She's
Awesome.
28 years old now. Yep. She's
Okay.
28. She has a
Hello,
master's
Miss
degree
28
living
year
in,
old.
yes, living in California, living her best life. So
I love
all
that.
things work for the good of those that love him.
Absolutely, absolutely. Too often they feel like, oh, you're going to get pregnant, you're going to drop out of school, and that's going to be the end
Yep.
of it. I have a similar story. 16, not 15, but same difference, right? My son
Yes.
will be 27 as well. And, you know,
Oh,
I'm so excited, right? I
we have so much in
have,
common.
right. This is our first time talking. So if you guys didn't know
I
that, this is our
know.
first conversation. And I just jumped right out there with her weaponizing her vagina. So this is what we
You
do on
did.
Uncomfortable Conversations.
You did.
We just gonna go ahead and
I'm
talk
like,
about it.
oh, girl.
Like you want me to answer that on live right now, and people gonna see this later, but it's
But I'm
fine.
okay with it. I'm okay
Right?
with
You have to love and
it.
embrace everything about you, and it's okay. We have one, and we know
Yes.
what we do. I think that's the greatest thing about when you know and you can take ownership of you. Nobody else can use
Yes.
that against you, and that's your greatest power.
And that's what a lot of women have to understand. I see so many women, especially in my field and just in general,
Yeah,
like we said, having all these degrees, they didn't try this and try that. And
absolutely.
instead of just, doing what it is that they
What they
want to do,
really love
they,
to do. They want to do
yes,
things
they
that's
went
going to
with what the
appease
world told
other
them to do.
people, right? Well, they said I should be doing this. Well, I'll make a lot of money doing this, but will you be happy?
Will you be happy?
Right? Because at
And
the
that's
end
a
of the
big
day, that's what
question.
it boils down to. Stress is the number one killer. I don't
Yeah.
care where
And
you
that's
are, what
why.
color you are, like stress will kill you,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
hands
So when I
down.
talk about those lawyers in that law firm, that's what they were under. I was 25 at the time, so I didn't have stress. So I was, just looking at them like, what is wrong with them? They're so unhappy all the
Right?
time. And so kind of going back to that accidental thing, I say that because I've been in banking. I was in banking and finance for 10 years. I was in, then I went to I did the law, as they banking paid for my actual degrees, my communication degree,
Shout out to
my
banking.
paralegal degree. And then I tried both. I tried the paralegal thing and I was just like, I'm glad I didn't go on to becoming a lawyer. I went to back to school and said, okay, let me figure something out. What do I like? What's the commonality between everything that I like to do? And it was people. So I got a psychology. I went to back to school to get my psychology degree. And then I got into public health. In the middle of that degree, someone called me and said, hey, we're hiring for an admin. I know you're in school full time. Do you want to come in for this admin job? And they saw that in that time frame that I had worked in banking, I had worked in law, so I had legal writing skills. I had published a book. I had a poetry book, actually. So as you talk about poetry,
Uh-oh.
and then
Somebody's
yeah,
coming back
and
next
then
month.
I
Give us an
had
excerpt.
yeah, and then I started a writing and editing company. So in between these years, as I'm working in these jobs, I was still doing stuff, right?
Right.
And then I get to this job, and they're like, oh well, we can give you an admin position or whatever. But they start looking at my resume, and they're like, hold on, you do
You
writing and
do all of
editing?
this
Hold
stuff.
on, you've worked in law? And so I got offered a tuberculosis policy and procedure writer job. That's how I got into public health. So that's why I call myself the accidental
Accident.
public health
Well, that is
advocate.
certainly an accident on purpose, on
On
purpose
purpose.
accident. I love that.
Yes.
So, as we continue to talk about public health, as that is what you specialize in accidentally, I am very curious, right, about your
Yes.
thoughts when COVID hit in 2020. What was your thought and feeling being the expert that you are? How did you feel about COVID?
I felt like everybody else. I was like, wow, they did not prepare us for this, right?
Okay.
It was one of those things like I've been working in infectious diseases for my whole entire career. HIV, STIs, hepatitis. We know how they go, how they come. Ebola. We had an Ebola scare. All those things. Since I've been in public health, but this was just something. It was influenza. It was the flu, but it was on 10 times
On
a level,
steroids.
right?
Right.
So for me, the person that I am, I didn't have as much fear as everybody else, but I knew that okay, I need to stay inside until they give us more directions, right? And they meaning the state,
The
they
state.
meaning the CDC, they meaning the World Health Organization.
Right.
So we were the same exact way as you all were. We were waiting for direction.
Okay.
What are we going to do now? Now that we know what this is, at
Yeah.
least we had that foundation. You all didn't, as we knew exactly what an infectious disease was and how it happens. We were still just waiting like, can we catch it by air? Can we catch it by
What
touching?
did you think
We
about
still needed to
them
know those
saying,
things.
what about when they said black people can't get COVID? Were you excited about that, or did you feel like, oh, I don't have
I
to
did not
worry?
listen to that.
Okay.
I do not
I'm
listen
just
to
curious
those
because
type
there
of
was so
things.
many people like, oh, they said we can't get it. Are you stupid?
I do not. I'm the
Right.
person that was called by the state to say, can you go out
And
into
talk to,
yes, and
right.
talk to African American people about wearing a mask, what a pandemic is. That's why I got my own radio show given to me in 2021 for 6 months because they wanted to really say, we really need to teach African Americans about what public health is. Because if this happens again, that
Oh, so now they want to educate
community,
us when it may be affecting to their community as well.
which is a lack of health equity,
Absolutely. That's what that
it
is.
goes right back. It goes
Really,
right back.
really quick, because we're coming to the end. When the vaccine came out, how did you feel about that? Did you get it? Did you run to get it? Or were you?
I didn't run to get it. Like I said, I understand vaccines. I understand their efficacy. Efficacy. I understand their effect. I did get it. I do believe in protecting myself at all costs. As I teach HIV and infectious diseases, it's one of those same things, right? It's like people talk about, oh, the government's doing this to us and they doing that to us. It doesn't matter who's doing that to us or who's doing whatever to us. At the end of the day, it's still here. So you have to take care of yourself. And that's what I tell people, even about HIV. I tell them about same thing about COVID. It doesn't matter if we're trying to find the root cause. Let them find the root cause. There's going to be investigations and things like that happen. But at the same time, we need to be protecting ourselves because at the end of the day, this thing is here and it's killing people.
Absolutely. Well, what do I have? 2 minutes. Really quickly, just because when you are an advocate and you are the face for a whole people, how does that make you feel knowing that the whole people that look like you and I are writing on your thoughts and your feelings and the information that you're putting out?
Well, that's one thing that I don't assign to myself because
Okay.
nobody's gonna put me under that much stress. Um,
No, I love
that's a
that.
big assign. That's
It
a big
is.
assignment. I do not tell anybody that I represent a whole diaspora of people. That doesn't even make sense to me. And anybody that does say that they are public health professionals and they represent the whole Black community, I deny that. I am one of those people. I am just a face. I'm just a voice that is being used at this time and at this moment.
Right. I appreciate that. And you have an opinion just like everybody else. And you want people to, I'm hoping you want people to form their own opinion, but you're giving them the information that
Yep.
you have.
I believe in each one teach one. Give people the information and the education behind it and let them form their own
Their own
opinions. Don't
opinions.
push or pressure anybody into anything.
Absolutely. I love that. We are going to wrap this up. I want to thank you, Miss Alyssa. I hope you enjoyed your time here on Uncomfortable
I did.
Conversation. It was good for me. I hope the butterflies enjoyed it. I think they did. We got some really good information. But most importantly, know that there is information out there. Please listen to it. And like she said, come up with your own conclusion, form your own opinions about it. But certainly have those uncomfortable conversations and get the information that you need. Be sure to join us next Thursday right here on Vegas Hype Media, 5 p.m. Thank you. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.